Okay, so today we're going to share some really unsettling stories.
Yeah, stories about sleep paralysis. Not the, clinical definition, but what it actually feels like.
Exactly. We're drawing these from personal accounts, narratives people shared, specifically from a collection over on YouTube.
People sent these sources to us wanting to understand these experiences better. They can be incredibly frightening.
Right. So our aim here is really just to tell these stories, get into the details, see what connects them, and, understand the fear involved.
It's one thing to read about it, another to hear the firsthand terror.
Definitely. So let's start with the first story. This one comes from someone looking back at high school.
Right. They were up late, trying to memorize lines for presentation, lying in bed, going over it in their head.
Feeling pretty confident, apparently, after reciting it for maybe 20, 30 minutes. Ready to sleep.
And that's when it happened. A soft sound. From near the closet, in the room.
So they opened their eyes. Pitch black room.
And saw a figure. Tall. Just standing there by the closet. Still.
Instant panic. Just boo.
Oh, yeah. And then the paralysis hits. Tries to scream, can't. Tries to move, can't.
That classic feeling, right? Trapped.
Completely. They said it felt like being stuck inside their own body, pushing against it, but nothing happening. And this heavy weight on their chest.
Making it hard to breathe.
Exactly. Couldn't even open their mouth.
Yeah.
Just staring at this figure, absolutely terrified, wondering if it was a nightmare or worse, if they were permanently stuck like this.
But the figure was the main focus, the immediate threat.
Right. And for about a minute, maybe, just pure paralyzing anxiety,
Yeah.
The figure didn't move.
And then
It started moving. Slowly. Towards the bed.
oh man, still frozen.
Completely frozen, still trying desperately to yell, to move, anything.
Let's see its face.
No, it was like covered by shadow. It reaches the bed, puts these long arms on it.
Oh, God.
And starts crawling over them. Slowly.
Towards their head,
Yeah. The shadow still hiding the face. It stops right above their head.
staring down.
Eyes wide open, just peak terror. Then this long second of silence. And the figure leans right in.
No.
And just screams, mouth wide open, staring right into their eyes.
Wow.
And then, gone. Instantly, the figure, the sound, everything vanished.
Just like that.
Just like that. Leaving them there, shaking, terrified. And suddenly, they could move again.
Sat bolt upright, I bet.
Yeah, looked around frantically. Was it real? A hallucination? They were young, even wondered if it was like a demon or something.
And this was back in the late 80s, you said?
Right, so no easy way to look it up. They were too scared to tell anyone, thought people might think they were, crazy.
So they just lived with that memory?
Yeah.
For how long?
15 years. 15 years not knowing what happened, carrying that fear. Until they heard a radio show. The host described almost the exact same thing, and finally they heard the name for it. Sleep paralysis.
What a relief that must have been, just to have a name.
Absolutely. But what this story really shows is how real it feels and how it escalates. It wasn't just seeing something. It was an interaction ending with that terrifying close-up scream.
Yeah, that direct, malevolent feeling. Okay, wow. Let's shift to the second story. This person was younger, 11 years old.
And they actually had sleep paralysis fairly often. Their parents even knew about it, tried to reassure them, said it was normal, usually just, being awake but unable to move.
But this time was different.
Felt different from the start. Woke up paralyzed, but with this extra sense of worry. And then they heard something.
What did they hear?
Footsteps. Soft, slow, really careful sounding footsteps coming up the stairs.
Oh, that's creepy.
Towards their bedroom door. And then they stopped. Right outside.
Tried to rationalize it. Like maybe it was their dad?
Yeah, but the steps felt deliberate, quiet, wrong somehow. Even as a kid, they sensed it wasn't normal walking. Panic started setting in.
And they remembered what their parents said.
Right, that hallucinations could happen, like a nightmare spilling over. And the advice was to just repeat, it's just a dream.
So lying there, can't move.
Close their eyes tight, focused. This was just a dream, nothing was real. Over and over. After a minute, opened their eyes again, maybe felt a tiny bit better.
For a second.
Exactly. Until the bedroom door creaked open. Slowly.
Oh no. Instant fear again.
10 times worse. And they saw what looked like a man walking slowly into the room.
So they closed their eyes again?
Yeah, desperately hoping it would just stop. Just end. Listen to the footsteps, soft, slow, on the wooden floor, coming closer.
To the side of the bed.
Right beside the bed, still repeating, it's just a dream, just too terrified to look.
And then something else happened.
a physical feeling. They felt breathing on their shoulder.
Huh?
And this is the really weird part. They felt their plushy doll, which was beside them. They felt it being taken.
Taken, like lifted away.
That's how it felt. Then they heard the footsteps moving away again, fading down the room.
Did they look?
Briefly opened their eyes, still paralyzed, horrified. Saw a glimpse of the man walking away, holding the doll, and then quietly closing the door.
Sue couldn't move.
Still couldn't move, just trapped with these awful thoughts, doesn't even remember falling back asleep.
The morning.
Woke up the next morning, things felt okay at first. Until they looked over.
The doll wasn't there.
The doll was gone. All the terror came flooding back, started crying, ran to their parents.
What did the parents say?
Apparently, they weren't that surprised by the story of the nightmare itself, maybe because they were used to hearing about vivid hallucinations. But the dad did search the room, search the whole house, never found the doll. It was just gone.
Okay, that is deeply unsettling because it adds this layer of physical interaction, or at least the perception of it.
Exactly. It really blurs the line, doesn't it? The missing object. It makes you question everything. Even if it's technically a hallucination, the brain made it feel so real it involved a physical object disappearing. How does that even work?
Yeah, it's not just a scary vision. It felt like a real event with a real consequence. Okay, let's talk about the third story. This person didn't usually get sleep paralysis.
No, it only started happening recently, linked to stress and anxiety. And the worst time was the very first time.
How did it start?
Fell asleep fine, woke up needing the bathroom, usual time. Decided, nah, stay in bed. Tried to drift back off.
They realized they couldn't move.
Exactly. Never happened before. Instant panic, heart racing.
Were they seeing anything?
Couldn't see much. They were lying on their side, blanket sort of over their face, just feeling intense fear. And then they heard the door creak open.
Another door opening. Seems common.
It does. And then voices. 2 male voices talking on the other side of the bed.
Oh, wow. Complete helplessness again.
Totally. Tried yelling for roommates, couldn't make a sound. Anxiety spiking, heart pounding, felt like they couldn't breathe.
Could they hear what the voices were saying?
No, just that they moved closer, right up to the side of the bed. Still talking, but indistinct. Muffled, maybe. Made it even scarier.
What were they thinking was happening?
Assumed it was robbers. Kept their eyes shut tight, just hoping they'd take stuff and leave. But confused, too. Why didn't the dog bark? Why hadn't they heard anything downstairs? They're usually a light sleeper.
And then it got worse.
Yeah, one of them felt really close, like right there. Could hear breathing right next to their ear.
That's terrifying.
And then a whisper. Like one of them spoke directly to them.
What did they say?
Couldn't make it out clearly, apparently. Then, suddenly, heard them walk away. Door slams shut.
And the paralysis?
Still paralyzed. Eventually just fell back asleep like that.
Okay, but there's a twist here, right? Something about a dream.
Yeah, this is the really strange part. Right after the sleep paralysis ended, they fell asleep and had this incredibly vivid dream.
A dream about what?
A dream where they actually got up, checked their wallet money, gone, woke up their roommate, checked the security cameras.
And saw the men.
Saw the 2 men entering the room on the camera footage in the dream. Then went downstairs, and the other roommates were already calling the police because the living room was trashed, TV gone, the whole 9 yards.
So the dream was a direct continuation of the paralysis event.
Exactly. It felt like the next logical step after hearing the robbers.
But then they woke up for real.
Woke up properly the next morning, and everything was normal. Money was there, cameras showed nothing, living room was fine.
Wow. But during the actual paralysis, it felt completely real.
Absolutely real. Swore they were awake. They had more episodes after that, usually just the paralysis, the breathing difficulty, hearing doors open or close. But because they always slept on their side after that first time, they never saw figures again.
And they found the sounds worse.
Almost more horrifying, yeah. Because you can't see what's making the noise, your mind just fills in the blanks with the scariest possibility, like people breathing right next to you.
So, looking at these 3 stories together, what jumps out?
Well, the core elements are definitely there. That awful helplessness, can't move, can't speak. The feeling of pressure, difficulty breathing.
Intense fear and anxiety, obviously.
Huge anxiety. And the hallucinations, visual, auditory, sometimes feeling like touch or presence.
Yeah, the figures, the footsteps, the voices, the breathing. Even the doll being taken.
And that feeling of it being absolutely real, even if part of you knows it might be a dream or something's wrong.
These stories really, they bring the clinical side to life, don't they? Show just how disorienting and terrifying it can be.
Definitely. Scientifically, what's likely happening is the brain is kind of caught between REM sleep, dream sleep, and wakefulness. During REM, your muscles are paralyzed, which is normal, stops you acting out dreams.
Atonia, right?
Right, atonia. But in sleep paralysis, your mind wakes up while that paralysis is still active. And dream elements, the hallucinations, can intrude into that waking awareness. It's that messy overlap that creates the terror.
And you see the variety in these accounts, the figure, the doll, the sounds, the dream link. It shows how the brain can spin that basic speed into such different but equally scary scenarios.
It really highlights how powerful our minds are at creating reality, and how sometimes that line between sleep and waking can get blurry.
Yeah. So we've heard about the helplessness, the vivid hallucinations, that creepy feeling of a presence.
And those really strange details like the doll or the dream that felt like a continuation. It pushes what we think we know about these things.
It makes you think, doesn't it? If our minds can conjure up stuff that feels this real, this terrifying, while we're essentially asleep, what does that say about perception, about the brain itself?
It's a fascinating glimpse into the brain's complexities, and maybe why these kinds of experiences feel so profound, almost mystical sometimes, even when there's a neurological basis.
Well, thanks for joining us as we share these pretty disturbing stories of sleep paralysis.
Yeah, thank you for listening. And if these kinds of accounts intrigue you, or frankly terrify you in a compelling way, you can find more over on the YouTube channel Horror Docs.
That's where these stories came from. So yeah, feel free to check them out, like, share, and subscribe to Horror Docs if you want more chills.
Definitely worth a look. Okay, goodbye everyone.
Bye for now.